Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news tonight on Rajya Sabha Television with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Before we go to the headlines, Rajya Sabha TV would like to make an appeal to all its viewers. Wear a face mask, wash your hands and face regularly, and maintain physical distancing while stepping outside of your homes or workspaces. Remember that these small precautions are all that it takes to defeat the pandemic. And now it's time to bring you the headlines. At the India Energy Forum, Prime Minister Narendra Modi outlines India's vision to move towards gas-based economy, underscores energy security as the core of the nation's efforts to become self-reliant. Defense and foreign ministers of India and the US to meet for 2+2 talks in New Delhi tomorrow. China, Pakistan and challenges to pace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region and South Asia on the talks agenda. Significant gains in India's fight against COVID-19. Recovery rate crosses 90%. Death rate lowest since 22nd March. Active cases continue to drop. Campaigning ends for the first phase of Bihar election. Voting to take place for 71 seats in 16 districts on Wednesday. Second phase elections on the 3rd of November and third phase on the 7th of November. Huge gains for the BJP in the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Leh election. Party bags 15 out of the 26 seats. Congress takes 9 and independents take 2. Well, our top focus in the bulletin this evening, India's energy future is bright and secure and will drive global energy demand, asserted Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday. While addressing CEOs of leading global oil and gas companies at the India Energy Forum on Monday, the Prime Minister said that energy conservation efforts have made India one of the most active nations in furthering renewable sources of energy.
Our energy sector will be growth-centric, industry-friendly and environment-conscious. That is why India is among the most active nations in furthering renewable source of energy.
The Prime Minister said that the government has planned to achieve a one nation, one gas grid while shifting towards a gas-based economy. He also elaborated measures taken by India to promote renewable energy.
India is the most attractive emerging market for clean energy investment. Friends, as I said, India will always work keeping in mind global good. We are well on track to meet the commitment we made to the global community. We had aimed to increase the renewable energy installed capacity by 175 gigawatt by 2022. We have further extended this goal to 450 gigawatt by 2030. India has one of the lowest carbon emissions than the rest of the industrialized world.
The Prime Minister maintained that India is the third largest and the fastest growing aviation market in the world in terms of domestic aviation. He added that India will grow oil refining capacity to 450 million tons by 2025 from the current 250 million tons.
India's reform journey has been on the high speed for the last 6 years. The energy sector has seen many path-breaking reforms. reforms in exploration and licensing policy were put in place in February 2019. The focus has shifted from revenue to production maximization. There is also focus on greater transparency and streamlined procedures. We plan to grow our refining capacities from about 250 to 400 million metric tons per annum by 2025. Increasing domestic gas production has been a key government priority. We plan to achieve one nation, one gas grid and shift towards gas-based economy.
Well, India is an important player in the global oil and gas sector, being the third largest consumer of crude oil and the fourth largest LNG importer. Monday's event was organized by Niti Aayog and the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with beneficiaries of the PM Swanidhi scheme from Uttar Pradesh on Tuesday morning at 10:30 a.m. via video conferencing. The Prime Minister's Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi scheme was launched in June this year to help poor street vendors hit by COVID-19 pandemic to resume their livelihoods. Till date, a total of more than 24 lakh applications have been received under the scheme, out of which more than 12 lakh have been sanctioned and about 5.35 lakh loans disbursed, the Prime Minister's office said in a statement on Sunday. In Uttar Pradesh, more than 6 lakh applications have been filed, out of which about 3.27 lakh have been sanctioned and 1.87 lakh loans disbursed. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath will also be present during the interaction. Well, shifting focus to some more big news now, where the much-awaited 2+2 ministerial meeting between India and the United States of America will take place on Tuesday in Delhi. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar are scheduled to take part in the meeting along with their counterparts Mark Esper and Mike Pompeo. The visiting US dignitaries are also slated to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval during their two-day meeting in India. Here's a preview.
Ahead of the formal 2+2 meeting, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh met US Defence Secretary of State Mark Esper, while External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Monday. According to Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Anurag Srivastava, the 2+2 ministerial meeting will feature important bilateral and global issues including Indo-Pacific, China, Pakistan and South Asia.
A comprehensive global strategic partnership, and this partnership includes political, security and defense, economic, commercial, technology and people-to-people contacts. And we've been having regular dialogues at various levels to discuss ongoing bilateral cooperation as well as to exchange views on developments in the region and in the world. The third ministerial dialogue will similarly entail a comprehensive discussion on cross-cutting bilateral issues of mutual interest. In addition, both sides will also exchange views on regional and international issues.
The significance of the meeting can be seen from its timing, which is just before the US presidential elections. A military pact, BACA or Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement, is also expected to be signed. The BECA will provide for sharing of high-end military technology, logistics and geospatial maps between both the countries.
A key deliverable which is expected is the signing of the last of the foundational agreements, the BECA. And this is cooperation in geospatial intelligence matters. And by signing this agreement, India would gain access to high-end US intelligence data. This is important for India because we do not have such high level of expertise in the technology domain, and especially in the Indo-Pacific, it assumes significance, and also in view of our border standoff with China across the LAC.
2+2 ministerial meet is a dialogue arrangement between the US and India. In the post-COVID world, it holds more importance, showing how two biggest democracies are coming together on most important issues, including economy, space, and energy, among others. The two countries have also formed Quad with Japan and Australia together to assure regional countries for security, stability, and prosperity.
2+2 dialogue partnership between India and US is the result of deep understanding between the two countries, irrespective of the type of governments there. It will serve the strategic purposes of both India and US, and it will also help democratize the balance of power in the world. Akhilesh Suman for Rajya Sabha Television in Delhi.
Well, let's now bring you the latest from poll-bound Bihar. Well, campaigning for the first phase of Bihar Assembly elections ended on Monday. 71 seats spread over 16 districts will vote in the first phase on the 28th of October. 31,000 polling stations have been set up according to the Election Commission in the first phase of elections. The fate of 1,066 candidates will be decided by 2.14 crore voters. Security has been tightened in Naxal-affected areas. Well, the BJP is contesting in 29 seats, JDU 35, and the Hindustani. Bihar will vote on October 28th, November 3rd, and 7th for a new government. The counting of votes will take place on November 10th. Well, in Bihar, with campaigning for the first phase of elections ending on Monday, top leaders of political parties held back-to-back multiple election rallies. JDU President and Chief Minister Nitish Kumar held rallies in Muzaffarpur and Vaishali. Addressing a public meeting, he said in his 15-year tenure in the state, his government has worked for women's empowerment. He also highlighted the achievements of his government. BJP President JP Nadda and Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad held public meetings in Aurangabad and Purnia in support of NDA candidates. RJD leader Tejasvi Yadav also addressed several public meetings. Speaking at a rally in Rohtas, he criticized the policies of the NDA government. Addressing a rally, RLSP Chief Upendra Kushwaha targeted Nitish Kumar's government over the issues of education, health and migrants. He addressed election rallies in Tekari, Imamganj and Bhabua. In some more election-related news now, the Bharatiya Janata Party has won the 6th Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Leh elections, bagging 15 out of the 26 seats. The Congress bagged 9 seats, while remaining 2 seats have been won by independent candidates. The elections of the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council were held on October 22nd and the counting took place on Monday. The BJP won seats of Turtik, Hundar, Diskit, Tegar, Panamik, Tangse, among others, while an independent candidate won in Chushul. BJP, Congress, Aam Aadmi Party and 23 independent candidates contested the polls for 26 seats. Leh recorded over 65% voter turnout in the polls. LEHDC Leh has a total of 30 seats and 4 councillors are nominated by the government. The 5th term of the present BJP-led LEHDC ends on October 30th. Meanwhile, Home Minister Amit Shah congratulated BJP workers for the party's victory. Taking to Twitter, Shah said BJP's victory in Leh Autonomous Hill Development Council elections reflects Ladakh's unwavering trust in the BJP and Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership. He thanked the people for choosing development and prosperity in Ladakh. Well, October 26th marks the occasion of the successful accession of Jammu and Kashmir to India. This year's celebrations hold great significance as they come after the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. Let's take a relook at the accession of Jammu and Kashmir to India.
Jammu and Kashmir was one among the 565 princely states of India on which the British paramountcy lapsed at the stroke of midnight on 15th August 1947. Under the partition plan provided by the Indian Independence Act, the rulers of these princely states were given an option to join either India or Pakistan. The ruler of Jammu and Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, did not exercise the option immediately. He instead offered a proposal of standstill agreement to both India and Pakistan, pending final decision on the state's accession. Although Pakistan entered into the standstill agreement, it invaded Kashmir from the north with an army of soldiers and tribesmen armed with modern weapons. In the early hours of 24th October 1947, thousands of tribal Pathans swept into Kashmir. The Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir appealed to India for help. He sent his representative, Sheikh Abdullah, to Delhi to ask for India's help. On 26th October 1947, Maharaja Hari Singh fled from Srinagar and arrived in Jammu, where he signed the instrument of accession of Jammu and Kashmir state. According to the terms of the document, the Indian jurisdiction would extend to external affairs, communications and defence. After the document was signed, Indian troops were airlifted into Jammu and Kashmir and fought alongside the Kashmiris. On 5th March 1948, Maharaja Hari Singh announced the formation of an interim popular government with Sheikh Mohammad Abdullah as the Prime Minister. Subsequently, the Maharaja signed a proclamation making Yuvraj Karan Singh as the regent. In 1951, the State Constituent Assembly was elected. It met for the first time in Srinagar on 31st October 1951. Close on the heels of the State Assembly coming into being, the Delhi Agreement was signed between the Prime Ministers of India and Jammu and Kashmir, giving special position to the state under the Indian constitutional framework. On 6th February 1954, the Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly ratified the accession of the state to the Union of India. The President subsequently issued the Constitution Order under Article 370 of the Constitution, extending the Union Constitution to the state with some exceptions and modifications. The state's own constitution came into force on 26 January 1957, under which the elections to the State Legislative Assembly were held for the first time. This constitution also ratified the state's accession to the Union of India. Section 3 of the Constitution says Jammu and Kashmir is and shall be an integral part of the Union of India. The provision of Article 370 was drafted by Sheikh Abdullah. In the Indian Constitution, it was included as a temporary provision that grants special status to Jammu and Kashmir. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Watch The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausen Pereira, at 9:30 p.m.
Defeat coronavirus. Let us always remember, wear a mask. Wash hands. Follow physical distancing. Together, we'll succeed. Together, we'll win against COVID-19. 5 million subscribers. 1 million subscribers in less than 10 months. Over 17 million hours of content watched online. RSTV, one of the fastest growing YouTube channel. 5 million subscribers, the count is on.
Welcome back. You're watching News Tonight with me, Frank Rausen Pereira. Well, a 4-day commanders conference of the Indian Army started in New Delhi on Monday. Army Chief General M.M. Naravane is chairing the biannual event. being attended by all Army commanders, principal staff officers of the Army headquarters and other senior officers. The event formulates important policy decisions through deliberation. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will address the conference on the 29th of October. Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat, Army Chief General M.M. Naravne, Navy Chief Admiral Karambir Singh and Air Force Chief Air Chief Marshal R.K.S. Bhadauria will also address the conference. The Army commanders will carry out a comprehensive review of the security challenges facing the nation, including the situation in eastern Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir. The agenda of the conference also includes a briefing by the Director General of Border Roads Organization on the various infrastructure development projects being undertaken. Well, it's time now to bring you the latest on the COVID-19 situation in the country. With just over 45,000 fresh cases being reported on Monday, India had its lowest single-day case count in the last 3 months. The last 24 hours also saw less than 500 deaths. India now has one of the lowest fatality rates in the world at 1.5%. Here's more. New novel coronavirus infections reported in India in the last 24 hours dropped below 50,000 for the second time this month. With 45,148 fresh cases, India on Monday reported its lowest new cases in the last 3 months. Recoveries exceeded new cases by nearly 14,000, with India reporting 59,105 new recoveries in the last 24 hours. Total recoveries have crossed 71.37 lakh, while total active cases are 6,53,000, making it 8.26% of the total caseload. This is the lowest since 13th August. On Monday, 480 new deaths were reported. This was the lowest number of COVID-related deaths in a single day since the 10th of July. Total deaths due to COVID-19 have crossed 1,19,014 so far, while total cases are 79.09 lakh. On Sunday, India tested 9.39 lakh samples. So far, the country has tested 10.34 crore samples. Kerala, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Delhi and Karnataka reported the highest 24-hour increase in new cases. Kerala again reported new cases higher than worst hit Maharashtra. Delhi is experiencing a fresh surge in daily COVID-19 cases in the past week. While Maharashtra, West Bengal and Karnataka are reporting a decrease in cases, they remain the top 5 states. Maharashtra, West Bengal, Delhi, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu reported the maximum deaths in the last 24 hours. The national recovery rate improved to 90.23%, while the fatality rate dropped to 1.5%. 14 states have case fatality ratio less than 1%, including Kerala, Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Telangana and Bihar. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television. Well, the BJP has responded sharply to Congress President Sonia Gandhi's article criticizing the central government. In a series of tweets, the BJP chief JP Nadda said the more the opposition party and its leaders lie and hate Prime Minister Modi, the more people will support him. Recalling the days of emergency, the BJP chief said that the Congress can never speak about the freedom of speech as they themselves try to weaken the freedom of press and dissenting voices. Well, hitting out at Sonia Gandhi's article, Union Minister Prakash Javadekar tweeted that her articles show her hypocrisy. He said she is upset as the people had rejected Rahul Gandhi and chose Narendra Modi as Prime Minister. Well, in other news now, the Supreme Court on Monday rejected an interim plea, seeking 50% quota for other backward classes in Tamil Nadu Medical College on seats given to the All India quota by the state. A bench headed by Justice L. Nageshwar Rao rejected the pleas seeking implementation of 50% OBC reservation in all undergraduate and postgraduate medical courses for the current academic year. The state government, ruling AIADMK party and several other political parties had challenged the centre's decision not to grant 50% reservation to OBCs this year. Well, the nation paid homage to Ganesh Shankar Vidyarthi on his 130th birth anniversary. Born on the 26th of October 1890 in Allahabad, Vidyarthi was a freedom fighter and a crusading journalist. He was an important figure in the non-cooperation movement. His weekly, Pratap, spoke for the oppressed peasants of Rai Bareli, the the workers of Kanpur mills and the downtrodden people of Indian states. Vidyarthi had to face numerous prosecutions, pay heavy fines, suffer 5 prison sentences and lathi charges for his crusades. Ganesh Shankar Vidyarthi was also a prominent member of the Indian National Congress and served as the member of the United Provinces Legislative Council from 1925 to 1929. In 1929, he was also elected as the president of the UP Congress Committee. He passed away in March 1931 after a riot broke out in Kanpur following the hanging of Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru. Well, some international news now, where Armenia and Azerbaijan have agreed to respect a humanitarian ceasefire in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict effective from Monday. Most recent efforts to broker a truce have been carried out by the USA after an initial ceasefire negotiated by France and a second brokered by Russia broke down. The current conflict broke out on September 26th. Armenia and Azerbaijan accuse each other of having targeted civilian population and breaking the previous truces. Well, that's it on this newscast. But before we leave, Rajya Sabha TV would like to make an appeal to all its viewers to stay safe from the COVID-19 pandemic. Wear a face mask, wash your hands and face regularly, and maintain physical distancing while stepping outside. Remember, these simple precautions are all that it takes to defeat the pandemic.